I have been playing in a campaign with my friend, the DM, and their girlfriend, a female elven sorceress, and myself, a male human fighter. We had initially had another friend play before he dropped out due to having another child and, being a father. In our most recent session, I had leveled up and took the telepathic feat from Tasha's because the elven sorceress had psionics and was able to communicate telepathically with the party. So I had thought it would be cool if my character had this power too, but was unable to control it and took lessons from the elf to hone his skills so he could use it appropriately. Role-playing. However, I did not take into account that the DM would literally have anyone I tried to contact roll a saving throw, and if they failed, they would die, including a young kid that the party had taken in and one of my character's parents, causing a rift between the party characters and set my character up to face prison time after being tracked down by a DMPC, investigator crime solver, of course. I ended up in prison where my character would be stabbed in their sleep, fighting back and ultimately succumbing to his bloodlust. He is a werewolf, by the way, and this ended combat with the assassin returning to his cell and locking himself away. My character would end up ultimately meeting with the BBEG, who would cast Feeble Mind on them, reducing them to an incoherent idiot who could no longer communicate intelligently. Complete and utter overkill. Am I the asshole for wanting to quit this game as nothing bad seems to happen to the rest of the party, at least not to this magnitude? Yeah, we don't need to do the whole thing, okay? Obviously, this guy is not the problem here. I mean, seriously, on the surface, did you, kill the DM's dog or something? Because, man, I've never seen a DM have it out for a player more than this. This happened a very long time ago, and sadly most of the details are lost to time. I was still fairly young and had been the forever dungeon master of a scant few AD&D and Heroes Unlimited games my group had gotten to play. I was invited to play in a game with a few friends in a D&D 3rd edition game. I got to sit down and learn the new system. I discovered feats and found the weapon finesse feat. I'd always loved agile fighters over hulking bodybuilders and thought it would be fun to make a character that used agility as their main feature. So I, a very nerdy guy, rolled up a female half-elven rogue wielding a rapier. The DM wasn't super thrilled with me having that weapon that early on, and I had to sacrifice a lot of other equipment in order to have it. And so my character set off with her new friends and adventuring companions, a fighter and a sorcerer who largely don't matter to the story beyond the fact that they existed. The party traveled across a stinking bog to arrive at the dungeon where we were meant to explore. And explore we did, though I don't recall too many specific encounters. At one point we came to a huge cavern where the floor was obsidian. In the center of the room was a pulley system with an unstable platform. The stronger fighter could use the rope to slowly lift the platform while the rest of us waited patiently. Turns out, there was some kind of nasty flying enemy in the cavern, and they didn't like us invading their airspace, so it was on to combat. Sorcerer and I fought off the baddies, while Fighter just pulled us up. At some point, the platform became unstable and the sorcerer fell off. I tried to help him by getting the rope over to him. Roll a d20, said the DM, and I did so, and I rolled poorly. I was told that the rope instead went away from the falling party member, ensuring he would not be able to grab on. I know he didn't die, but I felt pretty bad about that. Somehow, this also caused my sheathed rapier to come loose from the scabbard and also fall? I don't remember any roll for that and argued about it, but it was shut down. The fighter lowered the platform so we could collect our sorcerer friend, and I went to collect my weapon. Somehow, the rapier had also fallen point first into the obsidian and was now stuck a foot deep in the rock. This was my character's only weapon, so I had her try to, pull it out. And then the DM declared that my character broke the blade trying to free it. So now I've got a near useless weapon that I built my character around, and a party that's injured and not particularly happy with me. Fun. We get back on the platform and get to the upper level without further incident. The upper level had a chest, and I figured that now I would get a chance to shine. I sat down with my tools and went about carefully looking for traps. The chest was indeed trapped, so I was asked to roll to disarm, and I rolled poorly. Again, the trap went off and sprayed my character in the face with a powerful acid. It took everything the party had to just keep her from dying, and the DM described in detail how her eyes melted away. She wasn't dead, but she was not going to be useful in any capacity from this point on. I'm the kind of guy who likes to try to find interesting story in any situation, and having a character who was badly scarred and was trying to just scrounge together enough money to get that repaired seemed like it could be an interesting angle, but I was pretty bummed out by this point. The rest of the party packed my character up and went back to the city we'd come from, and that's where the session ended. There was never a session 2. I hadn't thought about this character or her fate for a long time, but I was reminded after binging Crispy's Tavern for a month, thanks by the way, that character's demise left me without an unrequited feeling, since her story had been cut so short. I'd seen something actually interesting mechanically, and so not being able to, do anything with that just made me fixate on dex-focused characters for you. Well, here we have a DM who kind of overreacted, and look, I get it. Sometimes you give your players interesting things that turn out to be powerful things, way too powerful for what you're trying to do with your games, and sometimes you need to walk that back. My players understand that sometimes there's gonna be some changes in the patch notes, especially when it comes to magic items. I give out frequent magic items all the time because my games are balanced to be really hard, so to compensate, I give them powerful weapons and gear to make them more powerful to face the threats ahead. However, sometimes I make them too powerful, and that results in me needing to make minor changes to gear. It happens rarely, but it does happen. You know what I don't do? I don't viciously attack a character to get revenge on somebody for picking options that I allowed. At the end of the day, it is my responsibility to introduce elements into the game. My players are just picking what I put in there. If there are changes that need to be made, I'm not the bad guy in the situation to be sure, but if I got mad at my players for something that I allowed into the game, I would be the bad guy, just like this DM. For context, last August I started DMing a homebrew campaign in a homebrew setting that I've been cooking up for nearly a decade. I ended up assembling a group from local randoms who all got along really well. The group ended up being 6 people, but there was a 7th who really wanted to join the campaign, but I wasn't looking for more than 6 players. I offered to let him fill in for another player if they couldn't make it. The spare player ended up creating several problems during the 2 sessions that they attended. The spare's first session was when the party was tasked with infiltrating a dark cult and gathering intel on their future activities. The party had to attend a dark ritual as a part of their intel gathering, and the spare's lawful stupid character just could not stand to allow the ritual to go forward, and argued both in and out of character against the rest of the party who had opted to do what they were being paid to do. Without consulting the rest of the party, the spare used an illusion spell in the middle of a highly populated cultist den to disguise himself as one of the 3 demon lords that the cult worshipped, and attempted to order the cult to kill their leader who was performing the ritual. It was previously established that members of this cult are capable of communing with their demon lords at pretty much any time they choose, that they're extremely violent too, and have no problem murdering innocent people and stealing their souls. So in response to this illusion, these cultists, who couldn't see through the illusion, simply communed with the real demon, and then very quickly every cultist in the room knew that this was an illusion by someone trying to deceive them. The cultist leader dispelled the illusion and the spare ran out of the room where the ritual was taking place. I had a choice at that point to either have the entire cult turn on the party, which is what they would have realistically done and would have guaranteed a quick TPK, or to make up some nonsense about how the ritual couldn't be interrupted any further and how they would have to deal with the infiltrators later. I chose the latter option because I didn't want the players, who had been enjoying the campaign for multiple sessions, to have their adventure come to a premature end because of a spare player making a stupid decision. But, it does not end there. After letting the party make their escape, they got into a combat encounter. This is where I realized the spare was a min-maxing metagamer. I really should have been involved when he made his character, because after looking at the stats, I realized he used point buy to maximize his HP and damage levels while leaving all the attributes unrelated to combat in his class all in the negatives. He did everything he could to be sure that the party was producing big damage numbers, and he argued with the other players on how to optimally play their characters, and he would get quite heated. I prefer, normally at least, to avoid confrontation. However, I had to put my foot down and tell him to stop arguing about what plays to make. While he did eventually stop backseating the other players, he did try to convince the others to play along with his strategies, communicating to them out of character instead of in character, where the enemies could hear it and react. When it became clear that the rest of the party had their own ideas about what to do on their turns, he just started ignoring the game and using his phone until it became his turn. At one point, I had to roll some pretty hefty damage against one of the players, and the spare took the liberty of rolling for me. This wasn't really a terrible slight or anything, but it was yet another thing added to the pile of problems he was creating at the table. I'm sorry. I have to say, look, as the DM, if I'm gonna roll big damage, I want to roll the big damage. I mean, seriously, spoilers for Critical Role Campaign 1, but could you imagine if after Keyleth jumped off that cliff, Marisha Ray was like, hey Matt, can I roll the damage for myself, please? I mean, it's even worse here because I guess this guy didn't even ask. That annoys the hell out of me. Whenever I told him to stop doing something disruptive, such as arguing over optimal play, what feats other players should take, what magic items to pick, rolling for the DM, or attacking NPCs that the other players were talking/negotiating with, he got very frustrated. After the second session, I had enough, but I was not confrontational, and I didn't know how the other players felt. Though I quickly learned the group consensus after one of them messaged me on Discord about the spare, and how she was excited to play the session until she learned the spare would be filling in again. We all agreed to remove him from the group. I messaged the spare and told him what was up, and that we didn't want to play with him anymore. From then on, whenever one player couldn't make it, we would just go without them, and things have gone much more smoothly since then, and we just had our 14th session together over the weekend. While that might be the end of Spare's involvement in my campaign, it's not the end of his involvement with some of my players. A couple of them also play in a paid campaign down at a local game store, where the Spare is also a paid player. According to them, he does the exact same crap, and has apparently held the campaign up so much and frustrated the other player to the point that the owner of the establishment supposedly stepped in and told him to cut it out. I referred to the Spare as that guy in reference to this sub, and one of the players said I should make a post here, so definitely nowhere near the worst thing I've seen on here, but just a little story topped off with some advice for DMs. Don't put up with that crap at your table. It will only frustrate the rest of the group and make them leave the game. As annoying as the Spare was, he definitely made me a more assertive person in not putting up with nonsense at my table. Great lesson to take, though I think this guy is a pretty bad example of a min-maxer, considering he only min-maxed a couple of stats. If the others are in the dumpster, then you're going to have a real rough time if you ever need to make, any saving throws. Like, seriously, just toss a psychic lance at him. I'm sure he'll have a lot of fun with that. The real annoying thing, though, is the guy backseating the other players. No one likes it when someone does that. Look, friendly advice when someone asks for it is one thing, but trying to control what someone else does just gets annoying. When someone else is taking their turn, it's generally respectful to just let them take their turn. There is nothing that annoys me more than a peanut gallery that isn't funny. Somebody who's constantly interjecting with needless information that just bogs down the combat and makes the game take longer. Especially for me, a guy who really likes combat and wants it to be fun. But yeah, good thing this guy got out of your game at the very least. The game was Star Wars Tabletop, and we were running a pre-made module. That's important to note. I don't remember what the module was called, but it touted itself as the first chapter of a larger, much more open campaign. The other players are somewhat important to the story. Ironically, as you'll soon see, the real BBEG was the DM himself, who was the reason none of us were having much fun. He ran the game so close to what the module had written that any attempts to do or say anything outside of it was futile. My character was supposed to be a sniper, with a rifle and scope as his starting gear. We started on a space station controlled by the Empire, hired to break into a hangar and steal some valuable cargo. We got our hands on some uniforms, found the hangar, and started planning on how to get inside. Tech player, can I set off decompression alarms to get the Imperials inside the hangar to clear them out? The DM responded, no, there's no way to access those controls. The gunslinger chimed in, how about I use my officer's uniform to order the troopers away? Their orders are absolute. They won't listen to someone wearing Lieutenant Pips. Okay, what if I feign an attack from the other side of the station? That will draw them away to reinforce. No, this cargo is too important to them. They are not budging. So we decide if none of our plans work, we'll just attack them head on. It was a brutal fight that was only won when an NPC pilot smashed into the hangar and ordered us to load ourselves onto the cargo aboard, which included telling the tech player to stop trying to lock the hangar doors, as he had been trying to hold off Imperial reinforcements with something other than just his blaster. It was then that I noticed the DM was forcing him to roll a tech check 3 separate times, once to locate the panel, once to just open it, and once to identify the lock circuit. We wound up fleeing under a rain of blaster fire from dozens of stormtroopers. Next session, we are flown to Alderaan to deliver the cargo, which is taken away, and we're not told to worry about it. Senator Organa himself is there, doing a speech while completely ignoring any attempts to engage him in conversation. Most of us were aliens from the Outer Rim who reasonably would never have even heard of this guy. Then he welcomes us to the rebellion and sends us on our next mission. We're a bit flabbergasted, but the NPC pilot explains who he was, and we're all apparently in awe of this human guy. Next session, we start in orbit above Felucia, where a small Imperial patrol vessel contacts us and asks our business. Oh, I've got this. I open the channel explain we're game hunters here to claim some tags. The tech player responds, good idea. We'll follow their flight plan toward the city and then divert to the woods once we're low enough. The gunslinger, I've got some leftover Imperial data pads from the station. I think we could use those to forge their credentials if they challenge us. We picked up our dice, and that's when the DM motioned for us to put them back down. The pilot tells you to hang on as she runs the blockade, and you're all shot down near your destination. The table explodes, basically immediately. Why would she do that? We had a plan, and now the Empire is on alert. Yeah, and if we crash near our destination, then there's no way that cruiser won't call down and let them know that there's insurgents in the area. Why couldn't we just talk to them? What was the point of letting us plan if she was just going to shoot past them like a bat out of hell? Well, this whole part was like a cutscene in the video game, but you guys seem to be having fun, so I didn't want to interrupt. The mood at the table was pretty grumpy, but we agreed that what was done, so we pressed on. Our next encounter was when we got the drop on 2 stormtroopers in a bog. They don't seem to have seen you yet. I look at them through my scope. What are they doing? Roll a perception check. I don't remember what I rolled, but apparently I didn't see them doing much beyond guarding the fog. Okay guys, probably just 2 lookouts guarding this approach. Can we avoid them? No, this bog is the only way to get to the prison so you can save your target. Really? The only way? I thought this prison was in the middle of the wilderness. It'll take you too long to get around. You've got to go this way. Alright, I'll take the one on the left. You 2 try to pop the one on the right. We take aim and we fire. They miss, but I get a hit. Neither trooper responds to being fired upon, and it's only then I apparently notice that they're not troopers at all. Oh no, they're only trooper armor, propped up to look like a trooper patrol. By firing at them, we trigger an ambush by local natives, who start beating on us with spears and primitive guns. We manage to fight back, killing 3 of them before another NPC shows up and tells us to stop. This new NPC explains that the locals mistook us for Imperials, which is ludicrous, considering how we were shooting at what we thought were Imperials. The 3 we killed got up from their non-lethal wounds. Apparently they were like alien enough that we didn't hit anything vital, and we were ferried over to their camp despite our protests that we had a time-sensitive mission. I tuned out the generic "the Empire is poisoning their land and their people are sick" spiel, especially since it was implied that destroying the prison would help fix that solution. We wound up doing a speeder chase against some scout troopers who'd spotted the camp, but missed one, of course. By that point, I realized he was supposed to get away. So now we had a timer to save the village on top of the timer to save our prisoner that would both hit 0 at the same time. So what did it accomplish? I asked the DM and he said, "It's in the module," and suddenly it all clicked. It didn't matter what we did. If it wasn't written in the module, it didn't happen. We were supposed to naively blast our way into that hangar, be in awe of a character any fan would know, be frightened enough of a star cruiser that running it would apparently seem like a rational course of action, even those fake troopers we were supposed to try and approach while pretending to be Imperial scouts. The DM was running the NPCs as though we'd made the decisions the module said we would, and nothing we said or did could change that. So comes the final dungeon, the Imperial prison. Tech and Gunslinger are having a blast, as what they want to do is finally permitted by the module. But I've checked out. We get into the control room after 7 or 8 exciting, action-packed, and totally scripted encounters, and since I have initiative, the DM asks me what I'd like to do, and I respond, well, what does the module say I should do? The look on the DM's face was one of relief. He starts explaining how he'd been waiting for us to just play the module properly this whole time, and was glad I'd finally asked what I could do instead of asking to do things that were obviously impossible to do. So I just made that question my mantra until the prisoner was rescued and the day was saved, then promptly quit the group. I wanted to tell DM in private how much I hated the way he ran the module, but the other players were drawn in and discouraged me from doing so. Still, I stood my ground and refused to play with him ever again. The other player is actually enjoying this is kind of crazy to me, but you know, to each their own. The fact that the DM was happy when a player admitted that they don't think they have any choices in the game is, well, that is awful. That's coming from me, a guy who runs pretty linear games, all things considered. However, the things the DM was blocking, I mean, come on, it's just petty most of the time. Why can't the players just get past the blockade using their big brain and smart thinking? The Imperials, knowing they were down there, didn't seem to be a major part of the module. Just move the encounter's important roleplay moments to the spot where they land the ship. And if you want them to be stuck on the planet, just say there's a storm in low orbit, and the pilot NPC can tell them, I can't take off until that's gone. Look, I'm not saying that every DM needs to be able to improv entire adventures out of nowhere, but it's not that hard to learn to move things to fit around simple player decisions. I get not wanting your players to, like, walk away from Barovia when playing Curse of Strahd, but like I said, the DM's decisions here just seem petty, and on top of that, and if there's any DM that I think everyone doesn't want to play with, it's a DM who's lazy. Let me describe the personality of this DM. DM calls himself D&D Dad and makes every villain into a joke or pun. Uses cringy, unbearable accents for every bit. Come on, we're all guilty of that. Gets mad if we don't take the game seriously, tells us how to roleplay, pouts if someone wants to split off from the group, 2 people go to camp and have to roleplay a moment, 1 person just looks for firewood, will snap at people, usually me, over small things. He went off at me for trying to send a quick text after several hours of play. We do not have a no phone rule, asks for a lot of feedback, that's good, and is extremely focused on telling a good story. It's my personal opinion that people play D&D for different reasons. Some like combat, some like exploring the world, some like roleplay, but we weren't roleplay people so much, so, well, Saloon help us. Sorry, I'm just frustrated. Anyway, he kept saying things to me like, wouldn't it be funny if we dated? And things like that. I have a boyfriend I care for a lot, and the DM knows that. Still, he keeps calling me cute and talking about my big brown eyes as a player and saying how I'm precious. He doesn't call the 2 other girls this at the table. He also made an extremely inappropriate comment about... Wow! Dude! It's the 2nd page, man! That's a bad sign. Anyway, he went and compared my character to a Tinder post that he came across, saying my character was cute but crazy. After I had already had 2 conversations about this, and it makes me want to vomit. Well, during a session, he showed me his phone and said that you find this funny. It was his friends talking on Snapchat about me, saying, we saw the boobs, we support you getting with her. I felt ill. And everyone gave me sympathetic looks, but that was it. The next session, I had already decided to leave. I couldn't handle the railroading and comments. It was gross. The railroading was bad because apparently his campaign had failed a few times before. So we were left with very few ways to do anything but the main story. And anytime we went anywhere, it was just, oh yeah, you got there. We went and fought a dragon, and literally there was no alternating paths. We just walked right up to the dragon like we were getting dropped off at a baby's first combat session. For reference, we have been playing for a solid 9 months as a group already. In the end, I left, and I told the DM our personalities did not mesh well. DM thinks I'm just mad and needs space. He keeps messaging me like, I'm here if you want to talk. Yeah, like hell you are. One other player, a girl, understands my side completely and has been extremely supportive. The other 3, well, they haven't been so much. One guy that I considered my friend defended the DM a lot, and I don't know how to feel. I may have lost 3 friends due to the DM being himself. Oh, and by the way, thanks for all the support. I really appreciate it. I was able to message the group chat explaining I was leaving due to the harassment. I also talked to each member, except the DM, individually and explained. Unfortunately, 2 members did defend him, and the DM texted another player saying, I don't want to gossip about the writer, but the fact that she didn't feel safe around me has me worried that she isn't in a good place. I'm dodging so many bullets here. I'm like Neo. You know, in those stupid teen high school dramas where you have that one football player that everyone says, oh yeah, he gets all the girls. The DM probably thinks he's like that guy, but, you know, doesn't realize how creepy and terrible it is. Seriously, this one was rough. That whole bit where the DM is showing her the text from his friends is just, it's terrible. Like, talking about someone like that, bragging like there's some kind of trophy to your buddies is just sickening. It's terrible. And then showing that to them like it's something that they should be flattered by or impressed by is even more disgusting. This is one of the worst dungeon masters we've ever read about. I mean, at least the guy asked for criticism. So here's a piece of criticism. Stop running D&D until you grow past the age of 12. You're way too fucking horny. Alright, and that's going to be it for today's episode of RPG Horror Stories. If you guys enjoyed, then please do leave a like. If you want to see more of my content, then you can check out our Q&Play series where I answer your questions in a rambly, unscripted format. And while you're there, subscribe to Crispy's Tavern to get more of our content as it comes out. And finally, if you want to leave your own stories or thoughts, go down to the comments down below. And also, by the way, if you can't think of a comment, leave the comment "Stop backseating" to let me know you made it to the end of the video. And that's like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you all next time. Farewell.